Good morning. Ms. Johnson, Brian Patterson. Your assistant told me that this was still a good time. Thanks so much for agreeing to see me today.
Thanks for coming out on such quick notice. We are ready to get to work on a solution.
And please, we have an informal culture, so even as Vice President Customer Service, please feel free to call me Sandra.
Thanks, Sandra. We appreciate the opportunity to help your team, so it was great to receive your call. Our team partners with groups like yours to figure out what employees need to achieve business goals. Now, my goal for our time together today is to review some needs assessment questions so I can understand the background on your situation, allowing us to get to the source of the problem. And then we'll plan some follow-up work. Now, my background is in systematic and methodical problem solving and performance support, so I'll be looking to you as the expert on customer service. Why don't we start with some background on your situation? Oh, and if it's all right, I'd like to record our discussion so I can listen carefully rather than take detailed notes. Now, no one will hear the recording except for me when I review our discussion. Will that be all right?
Yes, that'll be fine. As for background and context, there's really not a lot to tell. We're regulated by the PUC, the Public Utility Commission. Some of our customers have complained directly to the PUC about rude service from our employees over the phone.
Last week, Nancy O'Neill, the head of the PUC, came to President Ordoff with a notification that they are going to give us an official written directive to improve customer service.
Ouch, that's not good.
President Ordoff is understandably concerned, particularly with the rate hearings coming up this spring. He thinks it will be helpful if we can show that we're working to fix the problems before the directive comes out. This is a top priority for him, and he wants it done quickly. It's my job to make sure this issue gets resolved.
So, what specifically did the PUC say?
Well, we haven't seen the actual directive yet. But apparently some of our customer service representatives, or CSRs, have been very rude when talking to customers.
Luckily, it's a simple problem to fix. That's why I called you in right away.
We just need a little training program on customer courtesy, maybe a half day or so, to emphasize the importance of great customer service and to give our phone-based employees some tips on how to respond effectively to customers. I'd like to start the training soon, maybe in a month or so.
Well, Sandra, I can see that this is an urgent issue for you, but before we spend a lot of time and money developing a training program, let's make sure that training will solve the problem. There actually could be other factors contributing to this issue. As you know, training is expensive, both for the design and development, and primarily because of the time that your employees will be away from the job. I don't think President Ordoff would like it if we spent a lot of money and then the situation didn't actually improve.
So are you saying training won't work?
Not necessarily. It all depends on what is truly causing the problem. Do you remember last year when that consulting firm rolled out the new online customer credit system?
Yes, that was a mess. But what does that have to do with this?
Well, we developed extensive training on the new system, but the system itself was the problem. It just didn't reflect the reality on how the CSRs collect and assess credit ratings in the real world. And a training program wasn't going to solve that. That's why I want to get to the root of this issue before we recommend any solutions.
Well, that has to do with technology. This is about people being courteous. I think training's appropriate in this case.
Oh, it may be. But we want to make sure before we spend your time and money. Look at it this way. People are part of a system, and how they perform depends not only on what they know, but also on many other factors. Maybe the CSRs don't need to learn new skills or attitudes, but instead there's a problem in their work environment or with their work processes. Until we take a look, we won't know for sure.
That sounds expensive and time-consuming, and President Ordoff wants this done right away.
It does take a little time. And based on our experience, it's time worth taking. Without spending a little time finding out the real causes of those complaints, we can't tell whether a courtesy training program will solve your basic problem. And if the PUC complaints will continue after we train the CSRs, we'll all look bad. And even if we do need to develop training, we'll need to focus on the types of calls and skills that will pay off. It's really worth a little effort to talk to some customers, observe some calls, talk to CSRs along with their supervisors, and take a look at some of the complaints. And then we can figure out if we need training, what kind of training, and if there's anything else that's important to address. Don't worry, it sounds like a lot, it won't take long. And what I'd like to do is gather this research by working with a team from customer service. And then we come back in a month with a detailed report.
I wanted to have a solution in place in a month. President Ordoff is not going to like this.
You know, I think President Ordoff will be impressed if you can show him that what you are doing will truly make a difference with the PUC and position us positively for the rate hearings.
Okay, but no more than 1 month. And we'd better end up with fewer complaints, or we're all going to be embarrassed in front of upper management.
Got it. Let's get to work. Now, let's start with defining the customer service business goals and how they are measured. From our discussion so far, I can see that one goal is courteous service, and one measure of that is a low volume of complaints. Am I correct in that observation?
Yes, that is correct.
Good. There will always be some complaints. So what level of satisfaction percentage-wise does customer service wish to attain?
Well, the PUC hasn't told us specifically, but in general, we should be aiming for a 95% satisfaction with our service. That doesn't mean that customers will agree with our rates and policies, but that 95% of the time they will feel like they were treated fairly and with respect. From our recent records, complaints have gone up about 25% over the last couple of years.
Okay. Well, let me see what I can find out specifically from the PUC about that. And we'll take a look at the complaints that come in internally. Are they in a report somewhere?
Yes, we have a committee that reviews all formal complaints, categorizes them by type of call and resolution.
Great. I'll take a look at those. I'd like to review at least 1 year's worth to see what the trends are.
Our supervisors are required to monitor a certain number of calls each week. They use a checklist. You can talk with one of them about that process.
In addition to the quality of the call, what other business goals do you have? How about work efficiency?
Efficiency is critical. As you might know, we've had budget cuts the last 2 years and restriction on hiring with the new deregulation looming. Due to that, our CSRs have had to handle quite a few calls. I believe the current standard is 120 calls per team member per day. And we look at call wait times and lost calls too. We have to keep a balance. We can't afford to have CSRs not taking calls. And we also can't afford to have customers on hold for too long either.
You don't have any specialists who just handle certain types of calls?
No, we get the most efficiency when our CSRs are flexible enough to respond to all call types. Calls are routed into the first available CSR.
Okay. That new automated system gives you call data?
Oh yes, we get reports by person, by team, by division, by call type, by day, by week, and by month.
Excellent. Now, do the CSRs know what their expected call volume is and what happens if they don't meet those numbers?
Unfortunately, we've had to terminate a few CSRs. There are some people who just want to chat with customers. We simply don't have time. We've laid out scripts to handle calls efficiently, and they have to stick with the scripts. Each team gets daily call statistics for each person, and if a CSR is not making their numbers, then the supervisor works with them. If after a couple of coaching sessions they still can't reach the requirement, we have to start with a written reprimand. Then, unfortunately, it sometimes ends up with termination.
Do you think that maybe you don't have the right people in the job sometimes?
No doubt about it. There's no real way to tell if someone is going to work out until they've been on the phones for several months. That is why they're on probation their first 6 months. We try to clear up any problems before the probationary period is over.
Got it. This is all good information. Now, in addition to the quality of the call and the number of the calls, are there any other business goals?
Well, of course, it's important that the CSRs give and collect accurate information. They need to record the customer basics, address, phone number, etc., when they take a service order. And on credit calls, when people ask for more time to pay their bill, they need to determine when a payment extension can be made and for how much, and then accurately enter that into the system. There's a lot of detail, and mistakes do get made. Even a simple address mistake can really cause a lot of problems.
Well, how do you find out about mistakes?
Sometimes the customers find out. That's what some of the complaints are about. Other times we find out ourselves. For example, the technician is sent to the wrong address, or there is no such address, and then we have to track it down. We probably will never know absolutely how many mistakes are made because some are never discovered. But when our supervisors monitor calls, they track mistakes and summarize them in a report. We aim for a 97% accuracy rate in data input into the system and in information given to the customers.
Do they use some kind of a checklist?
Yes, they have a checklist for each major call type. If managers or supervisors find a lot of similar mistakes, they often call a full team meeting to go over it. That happens frequently when a new program or system is rolled out.
Well, this has been a big help. To summarize, it sounds like your main business goals relate to customer service quality, efficiency of call handling, and accuracy of information. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. But I'm not sure all of that is relevant. We really just need to give a few pointers on customer courtesy.
You may be right about that. However, I've never seen a situation yet where training alone was the sole solution. As we discussed, I'd like to review some of the reports you mentioned, spend some time with a supervisor monitoring calls, and talk with some customers, some CSRs, and some supervisors. Then we'll come back with a summary of our findings and some recommendations. Now, I'd like you to see the reports before they go to anyone else. What format do you prefer for your reports?
Well, our reports are usually written out and then presented in person with PowerPoint. Nothing too long. All our VPs are busy. I'd like to read the report and discuss it with you before we go to the executive committee. Remember that I need to see anything before it goes out.
That's fine. Could you give me a quick overview of the customer service organization?
Well, as you know, we have 5 different divisions because our service territory is so large. And each division has a VP, call center managers, supervisors, and from 50 to 150 customer service telephone representatives. Each division also has bookkeepers, anywhere from 10 to 20. They handle our large commercial accounts and help with monthly reports.
It might be a good idea to work with a call center representative from each division so that everyone is involved.
Okay, I'll contact our call center managers and ask them to assign you a supervisor who will work with you.
That sounds great. I've cleared my calendar for the next month to devote my time to this project. Now, if we do find out that we need a training program, we'll work with your staff to get the specific details we need to develop an effective course. By the way, I know you're in a hurry, so just a couple more questions. Are there any other constraints we should keep in mind? What about your budget or other resources?
Well, we allocated a budget of around $10,000 based on the assumption that we're doing about a half day of training. If we're going to do other things, we might have to revisit the budget. Also, keep in mind that we can't release all of the employees on our phones at once. At any given time, we need at least 75% of our CSRs on the phones for coverage.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with me as we get started on this project?
Those are the main things I can think of right now.
Great. I'd like to give you a weekly update if you don't mind, so you can keep abreast of the progress and give us any direction that you think is necessary. We could do face-to-face or telephone. What's a good time and day for you?
Well, Wednesdays are usually quiet. How about Wednesday morning around 9:30?
All right. I'll send you that confirmation later on today and we'll get started right away. I'll copy you on all email requests for data and I'll email you my write-ups as we go along. And don't hesitate to call if you think of anything important that we didn't get to this morning. Thank you so much for your time. This was a very good meeting.